What is going on, Sooner Nation? Thank you all for tuning into another episode of the Barry Mack Show. As always, myself, Barry, personal trainer, sports performance coach out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and alongside me, former Sooner wide receiver, 2000 national champ, Mr. Damian Mackey. How are we doing today, DMack?
Feeling good, brother. How you doing yourself, man? Good to be back in the saddle. Good to be on to the next phase in business. Super grateful for where we were, where we got started. Shout out to those levels, but we on a new level. They say new levels, new devils. So man, let's just keep working, brother. Working our tails off, fighting to be the best Sooner podcast out, and wanting to continue to deliver the goods to the Sooner Nation.
Absolutely, man. And as DMack said, for those of you who tuned in the other day, we're on YouTube, on social media, the Barry Mack Show, an official partner of OU Insider. If you do not have an OU Insider subscription, maybe you want to know who the names are that OU is looking at on the recruiting trail after a certain transfer portal didn't work out. Go to the site, 99.95 for 1 year of a membership, 9.95 per month. Go check them out. It's worth it. Brandon, Parker, Blake, Jesse, Brody, all the guys over there do a fantastic job. Shout out Spencer, who I've had the chance of getting to know, who's a big part of the production side of things, a little inside baseball, but go over there, check it out. But DMAC, folks haven't heard from us since the news about the loss of the defensive lineman. That's where I want to lead today. Defensive line has been the talk of the town for OU since Venables has arrived. It was the talk of the town before then for lack of talent, lack of depth, anything and everything having to do with the front four, the guys who put their hand in the dirt. OU has been much maligned in that regard. They get a guy who out of Louisville who was productive, right? If you actually look at the stats, maybe
Yeah.
even a little more productive than the TCU kid. But if you watch the film, you know who the guy is, right? The TCU youngster was eating up double teams and maybe playing a different game, a little more inside to some extent. But talk about the loss of the Louisville youngster, losing him to Texas, a Texas flip. Is it that impactful? Is it a big deal? Is it not? Where do you stand on that?
I think it's always impactful to lose impact players to obviously your rival, your biggest competitor in the pod that we're going to be playing in the SEC. I think there's kind of this whole, what I'm saying, like the jealous boyfriend kind of deal that I'll kind of dive into a little bit, and that part's kind of cute on their behalf. They got to go get our sloppy seconds when they're the ones who always have their chest poke out like there's some big and bad boogeyman, but for our standpoint, we lose versatility. The kid could play inside and outside. He had a track record of success both at end and tackle. He is a disruptor, and going into the SEC, right? We are keenly looking for consistent, right, disruptors who can come in on defensive line and make plays. And I think with the defensive line, you want to put as many bullets in your gun as possible, right? So you got the kid from TCU. We got Stone coming up. We got Terry coming back, right? We've got, by the way, the other kid from IMG who's Jackson, I believe his name is, playing well. We got Halton coming back. You want to have as many quality guys as you can stacked in that room as possible because somebody's going to overachieve, someone's going to underachieve, someone's going to get injured, someone's going to do something stupid, someone, you know what I mean? Someone's going to get mono, blah, 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 blah. And so, as many bullets as you can have in your gun of quality players, individuals who have a track record of success, the better. But let's keep a spade a spade. The program's not going to lose two games because of him unless we have a dire track of injuries, and let me knock on wood for that.
Please.
And yeah, I know, right? Because Murphy, there's this guy named Murphy, and he has these laws. But no, in all seriousness, um, you lose a kid like that, you lose some versatility. All right, so that's number one. You lose a kid like that to Texas, I think it's a pro and a con. One, listen, there is a zero sum game anymore with nil. It's just a fact. Teams have money. There's a budget for money. And even if you have an abundance of money that you can spend and we have more money than you, and whatever the case that may be, it's still not wise to throw money at the wall and see if spaghetti sticks. That's just not good fiscal spending. And so teams are gonna be more protective around the amount of money they spend on kids until some reform happens. I think we're probably a year or two away from that just kind of changing. And so they had to go spend money. While we saw rumors of multiple millions, we've seen rumors of 1.2, we've seen rumors of $1 million, whatever it was. Let me tell you, the kid got paid because you could see what he posted on Twitter. Twitter will tell you
Yeah.
when the kid says, "Oh, just that fast," I was on the wrong side of the Red River.
Man.
Somebody put a few dollars in his pockets, some promises in his pockets, and Texas isn't a bad landing spot. But on the other side of that coin, you don't want to lose quality kids to a school like Texas. That's just a matter of fact. We can't like totally downplay it, but I think there are some ways we can spin it. I think that puts us in a position to go look for someone else. Rumors are we've got a couple guys that we're eyeballing. And it's not the end of the world. I'm not going to cry about it. These kids want to get paid. Like you said, the TCU kid was the kid that everybody wanted. Texas wanted him before they wanted Lole. So there's that. However, sometimes the one you least expect is the baller. I would have preferred to have both of them in our
Yeah.
D tackle room and see which one of them could be the difference maker.
Yeah, I said on Twitter and actually got some less than positive feedback from Sooner Nation. I said it was definitely a significant loss. One of the things Venable said coming out of spring, this wasn't an assumption. This is something out of his own mouth. And you know how sometimes you can tell when a coach is maybe trying to get a message across, maybe trying to emphasize in a press conference the importance of something. And he said one thing that they were severely lacking at the D tackle spot, just along the front four, was experience. So, but before we kind of move on, when you have a guy like that who's productive, who's done it right, who's got that getting out of college, moving more into that pro body, right? And there's a
Yep.
difference, right? When you arrive versus what you look like later. Trace Ford, even as a youngster at Okie State versus what he looks like now, what David Stone is going to look like, what a GK looked like at OU when he arrived, a Dusty, like you just go down the list, a Dan Cody, right? Who was built by the time he
DC,
was
shout
he
out
was
to
done.
DC, baby. DC was a dog.
So yeah, man. So you see what college does to guys. You
Yep.
got a veteran player with experience, has learned the nuances of the game, can be a big factor when you're going up against experienced, left and right tackles, experienced guards, experienced centers in the SEC. Talk a little bit about why that experience piece, even if the guy isn't as talented as
Yeah.
Stone, as Jackson, what does that mean?
Man, it means a lot. Competitive snaps, uh, in the way the game is played now, and being an individual who doesn't have to learn on the fly, being an individual who, if a team schemes you in a way you haven't seen yet because it's your first year or your second year on the field. Let me give you an example. Um, obviously I came up in the elite system. The first 5 games of the season, my redshirt freshman year in the '99 season, everybody tried to play a big zone against us, and we killed them. Relative to that time, it's interesting. You look at stats, you're like, God dang, we were like the pinnacle of offensive football in '99, and those stats are like trash now. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
but relative to that time, right? We were the fun and gun. We were basketball and turf. And the second half of the season, we start week 6 against Texas, and Texas plays as inside man. And as a redshirt freshman who had never experienced a physical brand of man in um, a rivalry game in a neutral field, really, we're generally playing against the refs more years often than not. But they're literally holding me, and I don't know what to do about it. I don't have a plan B. I don't have an alternative, a pivot, right, that I can use. And I got to say, the receivers were a huge reason why that game shifted. We started getting dominated after the first quarter and a half, and hype. We didn't have a plan B, and so I equate that to losing someone like a Lole who has 3, 4 years of experience and being a guy who has played some big time games. By the way, Louisville's been a good team. last 2 or 3 years. So they've played in big games. He's gone up against some quality guys, some NFL dudes. He's gone up against guys with longer arms and learned to plan B. He's gone up against guys that are cock decent and have a strong base and learn to plan B, right? If you replace him with a pup or someone coming up 2, 3 divisions, right? They may have that same learning curve that he would have already experienced. Again, it's just the bullets in your gun, right? When you lose that experience, whether you replace it with a more talented ceiling or individual or a higher ceiling, I guess is the better way to say it. That ceiling that we're all projecting may not be relevant until 2025 or 2026 versus in 2024, we need to come into the SEC and kick some ass. We need those 3 and 4 year guys who have been quality players in our covered, not in our rivals covered. So the net loss tangibly is a body. The net loss intangibly is that experience, is the depth, right? It is an attitude and a little bit of perception. Again, we could spin it one way and say, "Hi, you took our sloppy seconds," and then they could spin it the other way and say, "Hi, we took a quality player," especially if he pans out to be a disruptor or a game changer. So it's one of those things you got to pay attention to. You got to own it. We own it, right? We got who we wanted, but when we got who we really coveted, there was obviously there was some a loss there, and we just gotta see how it plays out.
Yeah, man, you touched on some good things, and OU now transitioning to kind of the 2025, 2026 range. They got some guys that recruiting is kind of the heavy thing right now. You're going to have the barbecue coming up. But one of the things that I actually wanted to talk about today, because this gets into a lot of things that we discuss when it comes to evaluating guys, whether it's the science side, whether it's what a guy's body is going to project to, whether it's the skills, their ability to play football. I know it's almost become kind of a hashtag of you kind of saying Venables has done a good job recruiting football players,
Yep.
but one of the things that seems to be an important part. And Venables has talked about this even when he arrived. And I'm going to go into talking about the camps that are at Oklahoma that
Yep.
that they'll have, right? And you got camps across the country, but I don't think anything is always exactly like what they'll draw up and what they'll have their assistants do, and maybe who they really want to see down there. From your vantage point, being a guy who was in and a part of the program, a guy who was recruited by high level schools like yourself, right? The Stanfords, the OUs, the USCs, that kind of deal. Talk about the importance or maybe lack thereof. I mean, go into it of getting some of these younger players who, maybe are big time guys, but uh, maybe something's being missed on the evaluation side. Maybe there's a player who's a little under the radar in state, and why it can be so critical to get some of these young guys on campus, even who are freshmen, sophomore kind of guys, right? Guys you just maybe have heard about, you want to get a look, right? Talk a little bit about that and maybe the value of some of this coming up that fans might not see or understand.
Yeah. So two things. Number one, camps matter. Camps matter for the 5 and 4 stars because it's validation, it's confirmation, it's checking the boxes. And camps matter for the up and coming emerging individual because you get to showcase yourself, right? And so I want to speak specifically to OU's camps real quick, like currently what BV is doing. Um, and I don't want to I don't want to sound like a broken record or beat a dead horse, but think about how enamored we used to be with links flash with recruiting, right? Like it's actually kind of pathetic now to think like, yo, we would go chase top receivers and then always be in the mix for a top quarterback because we knew that it would weigh heavy on our recruiting rankings and we could poke our chest out and say we've got a top 5 or a top 10 class. But in reality, it was 3 receivers, a running back, maybe a tackle and a quarterback, and then a bunch of 3 star, like less
Yeah.
coveted plan B, plan C minus caliber, especially defensive caliber players, right? And so I think about all the players we lost in the border, the lines that is Oklahoma. right? To Texas, to Bama, to Georgia, to Michigan, Ohio State, right? Like, how do we lose Damon Parker's nephew to Michigan? How does that happen? You know what I'm
Crazy.
saying? Like,
Yeah.
how? Well, number one, Damon doesn't get the respect he deserves, but like, how does that happen? How do we lose a kid from Millwood to Texas? How do we lose the running back to Bama? Right? So like, we didn't protect our borders. And by the way, this is Link's watch. I can't totally dismiss and forgive Bob because the second, I'd say the last third of Bob's regime, that's when it started, and Link gave us the iron pyrite, right? That was the glitter,
Oh my God.
the cubic zirconia. You know what I'm saying? That
Yeah.
glittered and looked shiny because he could
Yeah.
go get 3 or 4 receivers, go get a running back and a quarterback, and that would kind of displace what our true rankings were. Well, Venables is doing something, and it's the eyeball test and it's the football test. We are just recruiting a different caliber player. Number one, defensively, we have never. I don't even think Bob's best years. I think BV is competing with Bob's best years. I think of Tommy. I think of GK. I think of Dusty. Right? You threw out some of the big time, guys who played in the trenches, and BV is recruiting on track with that right now, right? David
Mm.
Stone, highly coveted kid, right? The Nigel kid, highly coveted kid. Like we're going to get the kids, right? We just beat out LSU, Texas, and Georgia, I believe. I don't know if it was Georgia, but like USC for the kid out of TCU. Like these are, and you gotta consider you have to consider the portal as a recruiting season. It just is, right? So
100%.
yeah. So from that part of it, it's good to see that Oklahoma is doing what Bama does, what Georgia does. LSU's always been really good at it. Texas does it. Texas does it fairly well, but let's just be honest, there aren't enough. There are too many players in Texas. They've never had to just totally wall off their borders. They kind of wall off the high 4 and high 5 stars, right? Because there's just an abundance of talent and everybody goes into Texas. But when Oklahoma can say, hey, our long, athletic, fast corners, they stay home, right? Our explosive defensive tackles who go out to the prep schools to play football, they stay home, right? Like that is a perception that BV is attacking head on, and we're not LSU yet. Where LSU is essentially 80-90%, those kids stay home.
Yeah.
But we're absolutely climbing the ladder. So I just wanted to put a pin in that because I think it's important for us to respect the fact that that's happening. Now that hasn't translated into dominance on the field, and I think that's what fans want to see this year, right? So that dominance has to matriculate and follow that. The camps. Um, I was if starring systems were the were they if starring systems were the way they are now when I was coming out, I would say I was probably a high 3 star. I had a 4.0, so that bumps your rankings. Um, I actually went to I believe it was the Rivals camp. I believe Rivals was the only camp they had back when I was in high school and I performed well. I was a 36 and a half bird. I was the second fastest, 5.10.5. I think I ran like a 4.61 going into my junior year. So I wasn't blazing fast, but I was one of the kids when they left. They did a write up on me, whatever. Um, and so when you go to those camps, number one, you're apples to apples with your region. They can clearly see where you are relative to your peers. But listen, I've been around a lot of college coaches. A lot of my buddies are college coaches, and to this day, they all say they just want to see if they can compete,
Mm.
right? Even the 4 and 5 stars, the 4 and 5 stars who come with their Crocs or their Yeezy sandals, and you know what I mean? They're out there just to look cute. You
Yeah.
better be a 4.41, run. You better be a track and field guy running 10.71, right? With legit film. You better be, a basketball player who can do a 360 windmill because a lot of the coaches tell me, they're like, yo, Mackie, again, excuse my candor, but like, the kid's a pussy. Or we don't know if he loves it. Or we don't know if this kid is really just here to feel like to feel like they're a celebrity. You go be a high 4 star, 5 star kid and go run those drills. You may not have to do all of them. I wouldn't tell a high 4 or 5 star kid to run their 40 if they're a 4.55 guy. I'd say, hey, run it on your own terms, but go out there and compete. Run the drills, right? Do some stuff because it matters. And And especially at a school like Oklahoma, every year we hear about a kid who went to camp, earned a scholarly, and more often than not, those kids come and produce because they have to do it in the real environment. So I want to speak to that. On the other side of it is, and again, maybe I sound like crimson colored glasses, but I just gotta call a spade a spade. Coach Venables has one thing left he needs to do, and he needs to win with dominance on the field for the whole season. We had stretches where we saw a really dominant or just a team that could impose right on either side of the ball. He's got to do that for longer stretches to be a perennial 10, 11 win, season type of coach. But Coach Venables is a great evaluator of talent.
True,
I've
so true.
seen more kids come through the rankings at OU since Venables has been here who haven't been the ballyhooed guys, and they've come and been performers,
Yeah.
right? And so I just remember Gibson. He looked like Bambi, right? His first year. Gibson was probably the best receiver at the end of the season last year. Anderson had a little, you know how much I loved Anderson. You know
Yeah.
how
Oh,
much I
for
love Anderson.
sure. For sure.
But Gibson, the amount of growth we saw Gibson make, right? Sawchuk, we saw Sawchuk go through what he went through, and then Sawchuk is a guy like Sawchuk is a guy going into the season who's going to be one of the better running backs. You know, think about a guy like Kip Lewis, right?
Yeah.
Undersized, small kid. These guys are improving. They are. This is a developmental program that you see these guys coming up and improving. So I say when you go to those camps, I just remember, you know, I'm a junior in high school. I went to the rivals camp, and then so Stanford's there, and Stanford says, "Hey, we want you to come to our camp." Listen, I'm a 4.0 kid. Uh, uh, um, Columbia University wants to give me a scholarship. Obviously, it's a different deal. Ivy League, they give you money and these financial packages, but listen, it's Columbia, it's Princeton, Stanford, obviously USA. I'm thinking about the academic schools. I knew I was going to get a free education to play college football because of my grades, and I was a special team ace. I held some records for special teams, and I was a smart player. But I said, if I go to Stanford, USC, it's going to solidify USC. It's going to solidify UCLA. It's going to solidify Arizona. The schools I really want to go to are Stanford, UCLA, USC, Arizona, or Texas, which is crazy. Makovic, I think, was the coach. I forgot the guy's name. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. It
I
was. Yep.
I
Right
think
before
his name
Matt
is
got
Makovic.
there. Yep.
Listen, I loved Ricky Williams. I know I shouldn't be saying this. Let me stop. The fans are gonna get pissed.
Yeah,
But
man. Gee.
but my
Episode
point is,
one, we get canceled.
I go to that camp and shut shit down.
Yeah.
Holy smack! Like they were like, "Hey, can he get sideline to sideline?" Because I was a safety. I was a safety in high school. I'm speed turning out and I'm getting to the sideline. If I got to go get
Mhm.
that fade route, I'm in the play, right? Can he go rob? Can he read a double post, a double slant, whatever? Can he go cut in front? And when you do that, the other schools are looking at the participants of respective camps to see if there's somebody that they can sneak into. So when you look at OU's camps, I appreciate what coach is doing with the border. When you look at OU's camps, I appreciate the number of high caliber players that are coming in to participate. And then when you look at OU's camps, I appreciate his developmental system and developing some of the kids who may not be the big names coming out of certain regions who have, the size skill ratio that we're looking for our respective positions who are coming and producing development.
Yeah, man, for those who have listened to the pod, well, we went kind of on and on about it because we were here at the kind of the dawn of the Venables era, end of the Lincoln Riley era. One of the things that used to bug me that I would hear all the time then was this was a Grinch thing. And I think he even did this a little bit at USC until it eventually just got memed a little bit. But
Then he got
he was
fired.
like, we want documented times, right? We want to see documented speed. And I was like, who cares? There's a bunch of guys in Texas doing 10-1 in the 100 on a if you're not doing that now, you're not even placing, right? I mean, it's the Texas track has just it's
Ridiculous.
ridiculous, right? But point being is you touched on it. One of the things to bring a few people into kind of the way I view things, one of the things Venables has done on the defensive side that you can see with pretty much everybody. I think Gentry fit that specific mold which is why I
Mm,
also think he's been a stud.
mm.
If you aren't a good offensive player at the high school level, you're also, along with being a defensive guy, you're probably not a good enough athlete to play in a Venables defense. And you've seen that since then, right? It's why a guy, we've talked about him, on a from a constructive side, you can call it because it's the nice way to put it, a Jaren Kanak, right? But you look at some of the other guys who have come in since then, a Peyton Bowen, who yes, he was recruited by everybody and their mother, but he's a guy who produced on the offensive side of the ball as well, right? He was a guy who was a factor over there, and the evaluations, even the recent cornerbacks that they got, right?
Yep.
The Tristan, youngster. He's a guy who's a killer on both sides of the ball. But the things that you don't see until you're up close is one, it's hard to see height and size and
Yep.
length, right? It's hard to see what a guy's potential girth is, if you will. Like, well, what's his shoulders look like? What do his hips look like? This sounds crazy, man, but when he walks, is his gait a little wonky? Right. I tell people, I
I
don't know
don't
if
even
you
know
ever
what that
read.
means. I don't even know if I want to know what that means.
Okay, so
His,
here I'll give you guys a cool
I don't.
Andrew. Now check this out. So in Phil Jackson's book 11 Rings,
Okay, I
he
haven't read that
talks.
one by the way.
Okay, great book. He talks about the Lakers' decision to draft Andrew Bynum,
Mm.
and he was very anti Bynum, right? And this just goes into what scouts are looking at when they're watching a guy play. The management said, no, Bynum's a killer. Bynum's a stud. He's going to win us a chip. And he did, right? He was a big factor in the Kobe chips. Huge, huge piece.
I'm a
But
diehard Laker fan. Diehard Laker fan.
exactly. And I had to let the people know. I figured it was a great, great segue to let the people know a little bit about you. Everybody knows I'm a Thunder until I die. But anyways, um, he talks about in the book why he wasn't for not only drafting Bynum, but giving him long-term money. And it all had to do with his gait and how he ran. And when they would watch him in the workouts, he said, dude's a hill striker. He's not landing over. So whenever you're sprinting or running, you're wanting your torso to be over the top of the foot at a certain point. Really fast guys are good at not only having the power to push and cover distance, but also where they land, where their foot strikes the ground, is setting them up for the most success to get into that next sprint cycle, right? So
Okay.
where your torso is, where your chest is, how your position sets you up. He watched Bynum and said that dude is going to be nothing but nagging knee injuries his whole career. He's probably going to do well while he's young. The second you give a guy like that long-term money, the second they've got, 3 or 4 seasons on those knees, you got a long playoff run, in 08, 9, 10.
3 in a row.
Now you're talking about, yeah, now you're talking about some serious wear and tear. But point being is that is stuff that you really can't quite see it. You can't really see it at all, the detailed aspect of it on film. You got to be in person. You've got to be up close to see how a guy is landing. How does he have the get up and get down? Can his feet hit the ground and he's right back up? That stuff that you can get an idea on film, but until you're in person, and that's why Venables was so adamant about not offering scholarships until he's seen guys up close, right? Not saying you're a committable offer until I get a chance to watch you play. It's how fast are you processing things? Yes, you might be a 4-4 guy, but if it takes you, if your eyes are looking at his head instead of at his hips, or if you're taking too long to process, you're not going to be a player that can play in this defense. You're just going to be a
Right.
really good looking Ferrari that we can't take on the street. That's exactly what that's going to be. So I think it speaks to that is how you end up with getting an Oklahoma kid who is a good athlete. And really, to me, a lot of people said, well, Link just didn't want to go get the guys in Oklahoma. He didn't. The players out of Oklahoma that really had success, especially in your day, was a lot of good evaluations.
Facts. Facts.
And if you don't have a coach who can execute said evaluation, you're not going to have a lot of good Oklahoma talent because your Oklahoma players aren't going to be, your 4 and 5 star. And at the time, if they were, and they're a good evaluation at the time, they're going to Ohio State, they're going to Alabama, they're going to LSU. That really weren't going to Texas at that time, but they were going to other places, right?
Yeah.
OU lost a youngster local to Ohio State. That was a bit what Proctor,
Yeah.
right? If I remember right. So it turned out to be a pretty good player, right?
Good player.
NFL guy. So and you don't get that until you're up close. It's also to me, and this is just speaking on the relationship side, that is where you start laying the groundwork as well with maybe some of those families, maybe the way they felt when they went to the camp and the way a certain coach treated them, the way they felt.
What did the TCU kid say was the reason he chose us? Do you remember?
The
It
I know he talked
it was
about the
mom,
family aspect. Yeah,
and
yeah,
mom said I trusted BV. At
yeah.
the end of the day, it was an even race. Mom said I trusted Bates and Brent.
Yeah, man,
Matters.
it's a huge piece of the puzzle, and not to not to segue out of this too much, but before we get out of here, OU Insider's a site that covers a lot of stuff. We don't go too much into basketball and softball, but softball goes out there, they handle business. Wasn't the historically dominant year, but man, do you have any fiery hot take on Porter Moser, how the season ended, the
Oh
OU
God.
basketball program? Well, I don't mean to put you on the spot. They just got the big man out of Alabama. I think he's like 6'10", the 250, 260 range. Not if you look at the stats, not super productive on that side, but we were doing a little pre-show talk and you said some things. So I wanted to put you on the spot, man. OU basketball
This
right
is how we're gonna do
now.
this. This is how we're gonna do this. This is how I'm gonna do this. This is how we're gonna do
Yeah.
this. I think we got
Okay.
5 kids on scholarships, and I might be exaggerating. Okay, so this might be hyperbole, but I think we don't even have enough guys for a starting lineup. It pisses me off when guys transfer out of OU to places like Kentucky and Kansas and like these basketball schools. Like,
Mm,
bro, what's going on here? Like, how? But again, we were a top 10 team at a certain point last year at the beginning of the season. I think we were one of the last teams to lose a game. We were undefeated
mm,
for a very long period of the season. Basketball, I think Mosier is on borrowed time. I honestly believe that. I think I said to some people, I think this is not his region, and obviously, I think
yeah.
he's aged himself out of like the cool guy, and he's like a deep entrenched Midwestern guy. Um, he made some things happen last season. We'll see what happens. Um, I think we have like 6 scholarships. Like I think we literally have like
Yeah.
6 guys on scholarships. So he's got to go fill out the back half of the of the program. So I'm gonna parlay into softball, and I'm gonna make a hot take here. Uh, and I'm a diehard Niner fan, but the Kansas City Chiefs just won the Super Bowl with a B caliber team. Oklahoma can still win the softball World Series with this caliber of a team. So for all
Ooh.
of and the tournament did something interesting. I think Texas won the regular season championship
Yeah.
per record. Oklahoma came back and won the tournament deal. Had a little better record. Texas has some games, forfeit or whatever, but they did the best thing they could do to our young ladies and giving them the number 2 seed. That was
Yeah.
the best
Yeah.
thing that could happen to us. They're going
Yeah.
to play with a chip on their shoulder. They do have the talent to win it. I'm calling it now. By the way, I'm going to a game. I have not been to a game since I want to say like 2010.
Oh,
Ricketts.
wow.
Do you remember Ricketts? What years is Ricketts?
9?
She was cold. I think she was 9, 10,
Yeah.
11 ish pitcher.
Yeah.
I haven't been since Ricketts. I'm going to some of those games. I'm looking forward to double dip. I'm gonna go check out some softball and talk to my buddies up on the football program.
There we
I,
go.
I think we have what it takes. It's not a there's no dominant team. If Texas is the overall number 1 seed, and they really beat us. If you remember how they beat us, we got thrown out at the plate because a
Yeah.
girl hit a ball in the gap and center fielder had
Winnable
a hose.
game. Yeah.
Total winnable game. Uh, I think we win. I think we win the Natty again, and I think it pisses people off even more.
Yeah.
Um, but if the Chiefs can beat my damn Niners with a damn good team with their B team, don't sleep on those young ladies. I think they have what it takes to get the job done, even though we don't have the most dominant team. We're not Darth Vader this year, but we're still good enough to win. Mosier, borrow time. We'll see if he makes it through the preseason basketball season this next season.
Man, did you see the graphic that was out the other day that had national championships in softball? And it was like, oh my gosh, I almost want
UCLA,
to pull this up.
UCLA number one.
Yeah, but then it was like OU seven and then OU senior OU seniors
Three.
three. I was
That's
like,
crazy. I
man,
saw that.
that's
I
a
saw
hell of a
that.
flex, man. That is a hell of a
That's
flex.
pretty that's pretty damn cold. That's cold
Yeah.
blooded.
Well, awesome, man. Well, good positive note. We'll probably end it right there. I think we covered a lot of what the fans wanted to hear. That's what our show is wanting to be able to bring to OU Insider. We're going to be contributing over there on the board. If you're not on OU Insider, go get a membership. 99.95 for a year, 9.95 a month. Really good stuff, great content. Lindsay Street's really cool. Recruiting, I'll say this, and of course, it's a little biased, right? We're part of the family, but even watching from afar, Brandon and Parker have always done an absolutely incredible job being on top and present when it came to kids who ended up committing, knowing the tea and the scoop, even youngsters going to commitments who ended up not, right? That some of that. So guys who are just committed to the craft, committed to being the best that they can. So man, support OU Insider. Go grab a membership. So good to be a part of the family. Love that we get to do. Love the exposure it gets for the Barry and Mack show. DMack, as the folks who haven't been introduced to us will learn. Any parting shots, parting notes on the way out today?
Yeah, guys, I do want to say this. Barry and I plan on catching up and podding a couple times a week just to catch up for the time we were missing. I'm going to start a four-part series. We're going to start a four-part series talking about the importance of summer. I'm going to go into some stories and some of the philosophies that Coach Schmitty has. He rained down on us, some of the ass kicking he did. Barry's going to talk about the science, all right, and some of the developmental priorities that are going to be happening. So you don't want to miss those episodes. I promise you, you're going to hear some stuff that's going to make you guys laugh, probably make some of you guys cry, probably make some of you guys say, damn. But looking forward to sharing some of that information with you guys. Also, looking forward to having some of our comrades, ball players from yesteryears. It could be as recent as a couple of years ago, all the way back to I got one of my big bros is Dante Jones. You know what I'm saying?
Hey,
So we're gonna incorporate having some of those senior greats and those guys from the past years on board. Buckle up, buckle up. With all due respect, I like to win, man. I like to do my best. I like to be great. Anything that I do, and Barry's the exact same way. That's why this has been a match made in heaven in terms of how our work has just kind of continued to blossom and grow. We want to get better. We want to provide a phenomenal product for you guys. We want to be able to share a lot of the information we have and give you guys perspective, nuance this thing, talk X's and O's to a caliber and a degree that a lot of others either don't know how to or don't want to.
mm,
And we want to just show you guys, you know what I'm saying, a different purview of the program that we both love. I'll speak for me that I love. I played my last down as a Sooner and transitioned into a fan, and I still want to see my team be great. So, hey, man, just love to you guys. Appreciate all the support, downloads, listens, Spotify, Apple Music, all that stuff, man. It means the world to us because at the end of the day, this is still a passion project, man. I have fun doing
facts.
this. I carve time out of my schedule to talk to my mans and talk OU football, talk OU athletics, and I got a lot of mad respect for OU insiders. Um, Reached out and said, hey, they wanted to create a business relationship, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to do this, and we're gonna ride it till the wheels fall off.
Let's go, man. Hey, DMack's kind of in and out of Norman on a regular basis, but
I
I'm
wouldn't say regular. Don't say that. Don't say that. It ain't
semi.
regular.
How we'll wait. We'll save. We'll table that. But man, I'm in Tulsa all the time, so you guys feel free to say hi, say what's up. Doing this local. DMack is what they call. Hold on, let me Uh, peripatetic, I think is the word. Have you ever heard this word?
I don't even know how to spell that word. What is that?
It it
That sound like a
means
species of dinosaur or something like
like somebody who goes a lot of different places on a
that.
regular basis. I think it is
That's true.
peripatetic.
I'm gonna look it
And
up.
I could just y'all just roast me on that, whatever. Vagabond sounds negative because you're not a
Yo, you're
vagabond.
wildin'. Bi-coastal, baby. I'm
Bi-coastal.
bi-coastal.
Bi Bi-coastal.
Vagabond, bro. You're wildin'. You're wildin'. Vagabond.
All right. Oh man. On that note, Sooner Nation, thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you soon.